I guess we can start with what is Tech Paladin? Like, what? So people might have seen Nico's video on it, but I think that's pretty much the only mention it's had. I'm surprised it didn't get a Phoronix article. Usually, Phoronix covers like every random little thing that happens.
Yeah, so I wrote a blog post on my website, and I was also a little bit surprised that Phoronix didn't pick it up. I wasn't upset about that, but I was pretty much expecting it to happen. So Tech Paladin is an American company that does software consultancy
Mhm.
for KDE related software, and it's in many ways kind of a spin-off or successor to part of Blu Systems. Blu Systems is the company that I have been working for the last 6.5 years. And late last year, uh, the owner of Blu Systems asked me if I wanted to basically take over Blu Systems' largest contract. And after some thinking, I said yes. And the net result of that was Tech Paladin, which is many of the same people from Blu Systems who are doing basically the same work, but it's just a different company structure. And that company structure is headquartered in the USA and is owned by me and David Edmondson, who's also very prominent in the KDE community. And we're all pretty much just working as the same team, with the big difference being that it's basically an employee-owned company now. Right now it has two owners. As I believe I mentioned in the blog post, I would like to broaden that in the future. But the idea is that this is our vehicle, our vessel for doing this work and contributing to KDE and offering value to the ecosystem and making everything better. Like we're on this boat that we kind of built together, and I think it's pretty cool.
You mentioned there being structural differences between Tech Paladin and Blu Systems. Where is Blu Systems located, and is like what sort of differences are there in that way? I know you can't get like super into like details of, but like
Yeah.
stuff that's like publicly available that you can just
So
get on
to be
Wikipedia.
clear, Blu Systems still exists. I'm no longer working for Blu Systems, but it's still there and still employing people, still doing things. I have a good relationship with a bunch of Blu Systems people. There's no bad blood here or anything. Blu Systems is a German company. It's a Gumba, which is the equivalent of a corporation. Tech Paladin is an American company. It is not a corporation. It is an LLC. I don't know how much you want me to put you to sleep, honestly, because a part of this process has been learning like hundreds of pages of exceptionally boring
Right.
accounting and finance and company minutia. So, if you want to make this like something that you can put your kids to sleep with, I'm more than happy to talk about
Go
the
into it as much as you
nitty
want
gritty
to.
details.
I'm sure there's.
But like,
I'm sure most people have not really ever thought about like tax documentation past. What is the main income document in the US called? I don't know. I don't. W4, is that it? I don't know.
yeah,
That's
I
probably
mean,
the extent most people
W4 is
think about
like
this.
we actually don't do that one. So Tech Paladin is an LLC, which means it's a state chartered construct and not like a federal thing. And it's chartered in my home state of New Mexico. And because it has multiple owners, it's taxed as a partnership. So it's not a sole proprietorship. It's not just me owning everything. It's a partnership. And that partnership means that there's a built-in sort of line of succession. So, if I get hit by a bus, David can take over. If hopefully, if both of us get hit by buses at exactly the same time, which is not super ideal, there
I was
will
gonna
be
say, hopefully,
a
it's not the
third
word I'd
person
use
at
there.
that point who's an owner. But like one of the things that came up during this transition was that a lot of former Blu Systems people really wanted an entity that was resilient, that wasn't owned by one person, that had internal accountability and multiple owners and an opportunity for other people to do that. And so that's what we ended up creating, basically. And I think it was a really good idea, and that feedback for me during the process was very valuable because that's what we ended up going with. And I mean, there are, let me tell you one thing, is that the tax accounting for a partnership is approximately 12 trillion times more complicated than the tax accounting for a sole proprietorship. So it's been quite a journey to learn how to do all of this stuff, you know, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's and all that sort of stuff. But it was a good idea because it's really important to have a line of succession and multiple owners. It keeps the whole thing, I think, more stable and allows it to be more likely to outlive any particular person.
Right.
You know, in a lot of the sort of media out there, we're thinking about companies and corporations as these like artificial persons, and you know, they're sinister things and they outlive people. But like, if you're talking about like a small business, that can be a really beneficial thing because people come and go, but it's really nice to have a structure that outlives any of them, because it means that that structure can be preserved for everybody else as well. It doesn't have to just disappear, go away, die, become unstable if like one random person decides that they don't want to do it anymore. And you know, looking towards the future, I'm really happy doing what I'm doing right now, but I don't know if that's going to be the case in 10 years or 20 years. I can't make that prediction. Nobody can make that prediction. And so there definitely has to be a way for this company and its structure to basically outlive me if need be, either metaphorically or even literally, frankly. I mean, it's a little bit of a macabre topic, but I think that's the sort of thing you have to think about in this situation, right? Like, if all of a sudden I've fallen a well and die, everybody else shouldn't just be completely screwed. That wouldn't be fair to them. That would suck. So that's how it's set up, so that doesn't happen.
I did see one person in your comments mention, oh, why is it an LLC and not a co-op instead? And you did make a good point here about the existence of co-ops in the US. If you want to like touch on that,
yeah, I'd be happy to go over that. So I really want to create a co-op, basically.
One thing for anyone who doesn't know what a co-op is, explain that first and then go into the other part.
Okay, so a co-op is, well, one of the problems here is that there really is no definition of co-op. It's a very loosely defined term. In some countries, there may be an actual structure. In some cases, there may not be. But the spirit of a co-op is essentially a worker-owned company where decisions are made democratically and ownership is spread around and that sort of thing. And I ultimately really want Tech Paladin to be a co-op. The challenge is, in the USA, there is no such legal structure as co-op, at least not at the federal level. At the state level, there are certain states that have created their own like version of a co-op, but it's a very thin thing. It's essentially a corporation where they recommend that you distribute shares in a certain way. I told you this was going to put people to sleep. It's like I can already hear people just like falling, their heads on their keyboards right now. But anyway, I'll press on in the hope that there are some finance nerds out there who are interested in this topic. But basically, in the USA, in order to make a co-op, all you really have to do is distribute ownership and shares among the employees. Now, the challenge is that there's a parallel set of rules in the USA and maybe other places. I don't know, but I know in the USA this is the case, is that you basically need to make things economically fair, which is to say, if you hypothetically have 10 people and you have startup costs that are, let's say, hypothetically $100,000. I think I mentioned this in the blog post. And one person has $100,000 and the other 9 people each have $100, then obviously one person is putting in a heck of a lot more money than others. So in the USA, the economically fair thing to do is to distribute shares equally. So the person who put in 100K gets 99.9% of the shares, and therefore 99% of the ownership rights. The other people get a tiny share. Technically, this is a co-op. Now, it's probably not what most people would think of in terms of a co-op, because even though everybody has some ownership, one person de facto owns basically everything and can make all the decisions and is the decision maker. So it's not really a co-op in spirit, right? the way that you would make this a co-op in spirit is by saying, okay, we need $100,000. Everybody puts in $10,000. Well, that works great for the people who have $10,000 to put in and who want to put in $10,000, but not everybody does. Not everybody wants to. And so, basically we weren't able to create a co-op where everybody needed to put in exactly the same amount of money, because we had a lot of startup costs for this enterprise. It was a very, very significant amount of money. It's a little bit funny once you go into business, suddenly the numbers start to get zeros onto the end of them. When you're buying things for yourself, for your house, for your family, whatever, costs are at a certain level. And once you have like a payroll and you're sending money out on a monthly basis, all of a sudden the sums become unbelievably large. So, we weren't able to make it like a full co-op with everybody having equal ownership and everybody putting in an equal amount of money. But we do have an internal mechanism for people who want to buy ownership.
Right.
And that's a process that we have. David and I already have, as I mentioned in the blog post, we're the owners. But other people can and will be able to, and there's a process for that. And like I mentioned, I would really like for that to ultimately be a thing that happens, because right now our succession chain is 2 people. Right. And 2 people is better than 1 person, but 3 people is better than 2 people, and so on and so forth, right? So the more people there, the more resilient it becomes, essentially.
Regarding,
so that's the extremely long and boring answer for why not a co-op. Yeah, there is no such thing as a co-op. You make your own co-op, and the numbers just kind of didn't work out for us to be a full 100% flat co-op in that way. But one thing I will say is that the way the company is run internally is we kind of run it like a co-op anyway. I mean, I'm getting into internal matters here, and I don't want to do too much of that, but basically one thing that a couple people told me when I was reaching out for advice and wisdom was, be really financially transparent with your people. Like, tell them what's going on. Don't keep secrets. Don't do like back channel stuff. And so that's pretty much what we do. We discuss stuff internally. We have like a company specific internal org and business channel where we talk about like business decisions and should we do this? Should we do that? Like, what infrastructure should we use? Here are the numbers for the month. Like, here's how we're doing. Here's how we project the next month to be. So like, that's all open. It's not public because this is internal company stuff, but it's public inside the company.
It's
basically
public to the employees.
It's public to the employees. I don't want anybody to be left out.
Right.
And from a selfish perspective, the more information I give to other people, the more I guess it seems like I'm actually doing something. Like, I'm trying to actually continue to do KDE work too. I still do bug triage. I still do development. I'm still doing my KDE EV board duties. But I want it to be clear that like all this super boring finance and admin stuff that I do, like, that takes time too. It's incredibly boring, but somebody has to do it essentially. And I'm doing it right now, and that's something that I'm comfortable with.